There's a fresh story, come and see. With Olivia and Jenny, be who you need to be. Honest voices, safe and strong. Come as you are, you belong. So take a breath, let's begin. You're not alone, we're here again.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to A Fresh Story. This season, we are diving into families, and we are so excited to have somebody here today that Jenny and I have been following her story for a long time. Probably, 5 years, Chloe? When did you start your TikTok journey?
It was about 5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 5
probably
years.
around that time when I was in my old apartment in Queens, just waiting to go somewhere during the COVID.
Life is very different, yeah. So we're going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to dive in. So, Chloe, we're so happy you're here. Who are you?
I'm Chloe Sexton. I'm a bakery owner slash sister raising an older sister in a very patchwork family, as we like to call it. And I've been sharing my story online for about 5 years now, yeah.
Yeah, and you make delicious looking cookies. So we're going to have to. And I would like to add, you're an advocate. You're an advocate, right, for a lot of people and things, but also for this whole TikTok ban and why TikTok itself has really changed the shape of business and culture. Yeah. And so we bowing down to you for that one, because we know what it's like to put your head above the parapet, and it's not always easy. So we very much understand. Okay, Chloe. So one of the reasons we wanted you to come on here is because you are raising your sister. And can you take us back to the beginning? Like, how did your family that you said before we started recording, you have 3 kids in public school. You have a very typical day-to-day life, I assume, as a business owner. But how did this family come to be?
So, funny enough, it's still so weird to me to have anybody introduce me as somebody with 3 kids, because I feel that as like such a separate thing from me.
Yeah.
My mother, in fact, when I was 14 years old, I had a contract that I had 2 little friends of mine sign that said I was never going to get married and I was never going to have kids. And she framed it and gave it to me on my 1-year wedding anniversary.
That's amazing.
So when I was 19, my mom told me that she was pregnant. And mind you, this came after she'd already been fighting brain cancer for about 3 years at that point.
Wow.
She had a grade 3 astrocytoma, but she'd only been through gamma radiation, which is very specific, and it's not chemo. So she was apparently super fertile. she told me she was pregnant, and I just remember being like, "This is a joke. You're not funny. This is a joke."
Yeah,
it was not a joke, and she was very much like, "No, I'm scared too, but hey, we're gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine." And in the span of months, I went from going like, I don't know if I'm really ever going to connect with this 19, 20-year-old younger sister. I don't know that I'm really going to feel anything. This is going to be a completely separate person, to her turning my life completely upside down. And there was nobody I'd rather be in a room with at any given time. Mind you, she's gross and she's mean, but she's my sister. I get to say that, and I'll punch anybody else who says that.
Understood.
Mean as hell. But so my little sister was probably 3 when I met my husband. Tinder, yes.
Love that.
I was a news producer here in Memphis, Tennessee, and his Tinder bio said, "Insert cheesy bio." Cheesy bio, 3 words. I'm like, aloof. I love it.
Smart. It's witty. It's witty.
Serious. Yeah. Like, I'm not looking for any serious. You're not looking for anything serious. He wanted somebody to, in further description down below, he wanted somebody to go to a work gala with him at the Presley event center, the Graceland event center here, where all the well-to-dos were going to be. He was a manager at the Peabody, which is a historic hotel here in Memphis, with the walking ducks. And I was like, okay, good job, aloof, a fun night out. What'll we do? And that has turned into almost 6 years of marriage, 8 years together. just after that one night, we were pretty much inseparable. And a little bit into the night, I let him know, hey, so I do work in news. I did a full background check on you. I know you have a kid. And like, it's not that serious. I also have a 3-year-old. Um, she's my sister. It's not my kid. So Mason and Charlotte ended up being a month apart in age. My
Wow.
birthday's July. His birthday's August. And from about a few months after we started dating, they were like glued at the hip, best friends, did everything together.
This is like a rom-com.
You should write
It's a
this.
really
I
weird
know.
one, though, right?
I know. Like, you should write this script. This is like
Yeah.
really good.
I mean, it's literally a Hallmark movie. You're a baker, right?
Right.
Like,
Big
No,
cookies, big hearts.
I still remember being in denial for like the first month, like, ugh, it's not that serious. And I
Right.
literally never slept at my house even once.
Yeah.
Sleeping in his house permanently, like, it's not that serious. No,
you were young. You were really young.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
We met, I think it was 23.
Yeah.
We got married when I was 24. Yeah, we got married on my golden birthday.
Okay.
We got married on my birthday. That's another one for you.
Wow. See? Hallmark movie.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think the real moment that I was understanding that it wasn't just like a relationship, but like I was potentially building an accidental family
Mm-hmm.
was I had this conversation with him a few months into dating. And I could tell he was very serious. You know what guys say that they're serious? And you're like,
Mhm.
maybe he really is. There wasn't a question. It was very obvious he
Yeah.
was serious. I had a conversation with him where I went, I live with the reality that I'm likely going to become my sister's guardian. I know that this is 100% fact. Becoming my sister's guardian was not something that like hit me by surprise. My mom had brain cancer. She'd had 2 brain surgeries at that point. She went on to have a total of 4. And I said to him, she's tired a lot of the time. She's going in for another round of treatment. She's really sick. Charlotte needs a lot of attention. She needs things other kids don't. And there's simply not going to be anybody who comes above her for me. And I love what we have here, but I need somebody who's going to understand that, like, she's your kid too, and you have to act like that immediately. You take responsibility.
Yeah.
Or I need you to just kind of back off.
Yeah.
And that week he bought a bunk bed so that Charlotte could be there when my mom was really sick, and that we could take her to school.
I have chills.
Oh,
I know. I have
I
chills
didn't
from
do
that.
Ew.
No.
He buckled down so hard in a way that was just like, I'm not afraid. It's fine. I
Yeah.
love that kid, and you're treating my kid
Right,
like he's your kid when he comes from enough complications. And it was the first time I really felt like I could let my guard down. Like I didn't have to do the oldest sister stuff.
Yeah.
Where I was going to be like, I don't need you. I'm fine. Like
Mhm.
maybe I could need somebody for once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed the trajectory of my life.
Wow. So what did the next few years bring with your mom's health? And then you got married. And was she alive when you got married?
Yeah, she was. None of my family was at my wedding though. I
Okay.
had a conversation with mom.
I did that too. It was amazing. Great choice,
Uh,
right?
Despite how like news producer sounds, I was making no money.
Yeah.
Literally no money. And we were really fiscally responsible, very young, both of us. And we just went like, hey, I must have called every wedding venue in a 100-mile radius. I did all the things. We had lots of friends in food and beverage here in Memphis, and even pulling all the strings, we mathed down on a spreadsheet that we could not have a wedding for less than $25,000.
Yeah.
And I just went, I don't feel excited about it, regardless of the financial responsibility. I don't feel excited about that idea. And we had this like little running joke about eloping, like, what if we
What
if we did?
yeah. The joke
And
becomes reality.
we went on this little Google spree about sandals, South Coast Jamaica, like the way that Michael Scott says in The Office.
Mhm.
We had a running joke about like sandals, South Coast Jamaica. And we started jokingly looking up bookings. And I brought this joke up to my mom and talked about like, do you know for $5,000 flights included, I could stay in Jamaica for a week and they give you the wedding for free? And it's just like, who should do that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Watching people's reactions and it would be happy.
Right.
And no, my mom was just like, dude, literally, you could FaceTime me. We could have a party after. It's not that
Yeah.
heavy. $25,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And my mom was living on disability. She's like, I'm not in a financial place to tell you to put yourself in a bad financial place.
Right.
Do it. And a week later, we booked it. My husband sat on the phone with Sandals, and he out loud was saying, potential dates for our wedding, oh, okay. So we'd extend from the 23rd, 24th, 25th, rolling right over my birthday, not noticing he had just booked our wedding on my birthday. I forgave it.
Yeah.
forgave it.
Yeah.
But
No,
I was
I
like,
love that.
we're getting married on my birthday.
I love that. I mean, it's not look, we've talked to you for 11 minutes and I can see why he fell in love with you so hard because you have a beautiful energy. You truly do. And I think I can see why he wanted to lock that shit down because you like, you
Yeah, you want to go to Jamaica? I mean, I'm
Or, I
just
mean,
saying, like girls trip.
but like you are determined and you are compassionate and you are clearly somebody that is very just and wants to do the right thing by the people in her life. And I think that not everybody's like that. And I love that you met a partner that aligns with your values like that because it could have been very different, Yeah. Yeah.
I also think that like as watching somebody, my sister has her 2 kids and being a child of divorce and having people come into our lives, into my dad's life and into our mom's life, the experience of having somebody come into your child's life and be like, yeah, they're my kid. I love them, right? And like the way that you seem to be with your stepson, like, or your bonus kid, like it's amazing. And I think from his perspective, yes, he got to love Charlotte, but also like he got somebody that was just like on board with taking care of and loving and caring for Mason. And that is a turn on, like in every way, right? Like it's an emotional turn on. And I can understand, like, I think it doesn't surprise me that you guys are so synced up like that because like you came in and you were just like, yes, like I accept it. I want it. I embrace it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it really evened the playing field dating wise for us. Because a lot of my I'm not looking for anything serious was upfront, built up in that oldest sister energy of I can take care of myself, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But also that the dating field at 24 years old, 23 years old, when they want to get to know you better and they're not prepared for oh, I have a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Before anything that ever happened with my mom and brain cancer. I have a very complicated history. No dad. Mom has brain cancer. Always precariously on that line of she'll get sick. I have to take care of her. She needs a brain surgery. I have an 18-month-old on my hip. There's no world where a 23-year-old guy or anybody around that age is emotionally stable enough to go, I can handle this. They have no interest. And they immediately cringe and fall back. And in that same respect for Tyler, it's trying to enter into a relationship young because he's 2 years old. Same as 26, still young.
Right. Yeah.
And then, you have to ease into the conversation that I do have a kid. For a lot of people would be like, oh, that's so scary. And I'm like, that's crazy. I do too. And brain cancer.
Right.
I could one up that 100%. It's not scary to me. So we evened each other out in a way that made it immediately not scary.
Yeah.
And also that we could, support each other.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did you all move in together?
Yeah, so it was probably 5 months into the relationship. We moved in together. My mom was still living in Memphis. We were in the Midtown area. Charlotte would come over on weekends, holidays, whenever my mom was sick. And then we bought our first house about 2 years later. And that is when I found out I was pregnant.
Okay.
At the time, I was working for a marketing firm. No, I wasn't. Oh, no, I had moved out of a marketing firm. I was working as marketing director for a nonprofit.
Okay.
And that's when I was really this will be the thing that feels like I finally have my thing. I'd been climbing corporate ladder and I'd been doing all of that, got out of news. But I still really didn't feel like I had my thing. On the side, I was always baking. I've been baking since I was a kid. But it was something that I always saw it as a hobby. I would bring it to the news station and I would, test stuff that I was baking out on people around me. And they're very honest.
Well, they're journalists, right? Yeah.
If it's 90% guys and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, they're going to be really honest.
Yeah.
What works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And baking was so good for my mental health too.
Yeah. I'm the same way.
Memphis news, especially with local news, it's so crime heavy. That was really damaging. So I wanted to get out of that. I kept baking. And for my wedding present before we left for Jamaica, my husband had made a website for my baking and like a place where we could get custom orders.
Aw.
And he had a friend design a logo. There were business cards. He just gave me this whole box of stuff. And he was just like, I need you to take yourself seriously. You're so talented. And
Wow.
yes, I cried.
Yeah, I
did.
would too.
Yeah. That deserves it.
Does he have a
Yeah,
brother,
and I
by
was
the
like,
way?
"Right,
I
that's
was
right,
gonna say,
Question.
does he have a brother? Does he have friends?
only
Darn.
child, right?
Wow,
I'm like, what?
interesting. Yeah.
So sweet. So like I had been carrying that along with me. So we're in our first house. You know, I'm pregnant. You know, we've been trying for a while. I was really excited. I was fresh off of this like Zoom call because we're still working remote with like the CEO at the time of that nonprofit, where they would just give me this glowing review of how well I'd done with their social medias, almost like I was naturally going to be good at it. And I was like, you know what? We're safe here. They're not going to hire somebody else. It's fine. I can tell them. So I told them because I had so many appointments coming up that was going to feel a little weird consecutively to be missing out on work. I told them I was pregnant. And it was the weekend before, the Friday before Thanksgiving. And I had I had one of those random Zoom calls they scheduled with me, and it was HR and my direct manager 3 days after this like
No.
glowing review and 48 hours after I told them I was pregnant.
Is that
Wow.
even legal? Like that it feels really illegal. Yeah.
No. And, you know, everybody always has asked me, like, so what did you do? What did you do about it? I did pursue it with the EEOC. I had
Yeah.
did pursue it. And then I stopped pursuing it because
I understand.
so much happened right after that. You get these phone calls after phone calls. And mind you, this is, you know, peak post-COVID, absolutely no jobs. Everybody's getting fired for bad reasons. The EEOC was overloaded.
Right.
And I really wanted to keep up with it. But 10 months into me pursuing this and still joining phone calls, still submitting evidence over emails, still being told, okay, well, we'll get back with you in 60 days. My life was taking off in this other really exciting direction. And I had
Yeah.
to go like, not only that, but my mom was getting sick again. And I had to
Yeah.
just go, this isn't worth my time anymore. I'm done. I'm so done.
Yeah.
And I gave it up. And I regret it. And I don't, because I'm a lunatic. So I kept stalking
Me too.
the manager who had fired me, and he lost his job like 2 weeks later. So, you know,
Karma.
Well,
karma had me.
the
I'm
best
fine.
revenge is a life well lived too. And I would
Yeah.
say you're doing pretty beautifully for yourself, like with the business and everything.
I wasn't angry anymore, and I just gave up caring.
Yeah.
Understood.
So, okay. So how do you go from, so you have your child, your daughter, right? You have a daughter, right?
Son,
Son,
The
okay.
baby's a son,
Theodore.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was born May 2021 in my office at home. Where I
Oh, wow.
started.
Was that intentional, Chloe? Okay.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not a crunchy. I was raised by a crunchy. My mother was a hippie.
Yeah, there
raised
was
me in
like
a
a
commune
culty
for 8
stuff, right?
years.
Commune stuff. And I remember
Yeah.
from TikTok.
That wasn't why I did homework, because I am so pro the thing that they stick in your back to make you go
epidural.
bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me
that
too.
sounds amazing. I'm so
Yeah.
pro that. This was peak COVID, and
Got it. That
I
makes sense.
was really already emotionally so damaged and so scared. And my husband was made abundantly clear to me, he cannot be in the room if you're going to give birth.
That's really scary.
You're going to be alone with a doctor, and that's it. And I went,
No.
Home birth
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, but I lost my health insurance. So I paid $3,000 cash to have a baby in a kiddie pool in my office. Done.
Wow.
Hallmark movie.
I know. I was gonna say you did the
And TikTok paid for that.
There you
Thank
go.
TikTok.
Yeah. There you go.
That's
there you go.
amazing.
Okay.
So and then
yeah.
so you have the baby, which by the way, Chloe, I'm including your name because your mother named you. Chloe, Charlotte, Mason, and Theodore. These are wonderful names. Just like wonderful selection of names. So you have Theodore. Does he go by Teddy?
No, I try. And he's like, my name's not Teddy, you know. He won't even if you say anything other than Theo, he's like,
Theo. Okay.
Theodore? What are you doing?
Theodore. Okay, so Theo. And then when does Chloe, you're Chloe. When does Charlotte start? Is she spending more time at your house? What's going on with her at that time?
So when I was about 8 months pregnant, my mom, every 6 months they do the thing where she goes to Vanderbilt University. She gets her scan. They check up. Is anything growing? Nope, you're fine. Okay, bounce. And when I was about 7 months pregnant, um, yeah, she had one of those calls. And every time she had that call when it was going to go bad, she knew something. And she just had feeling, probably because she was off and like it's in her brain. She knows what's up. So we took the Zoom call with her doctor in my office, and they showed us what was going on, and it was size of a golf ball again. And so it was time to start that all up. And that's when I had never really addressed any of that on TikTok. I've been making videos, like shit posting. Just stuff that was funny, stuff about my baking, just whatever I wanted to. And I had maybe like 100,000 followers at the time. And then lo and behold, I bring in this other, like fresh off of like a few months after telling everybody my story about what had just happened to me, getting fired, being pregnant, being scared, trying to launch this cookie idea, people being very interested. Along comes this theme of like, and by the way, my mom has brain cancer and I have a little sister. I've never talked to you guys about that. I should tell you what's up because this is really scary. So it just came with this huge flood of support and this whole other new audience. Funny enough, in my own analytics, I have consistently kept like a 92% female audience.
Yeah.
Understood.
I need that. And my mom just got her own little fan club overnight of people supporting her and wanting to help her. And I still wasn't really ready to talk about my sister or open up about that. So it took some time for me to really start talking about her. So my mom had the surgery. She started radiation and chemo again. And I felt like, okay, this is the third time. It's just going to be like it always has been. She just gets better again, and it's fine.
Right.
But she wasn't really the same after that one. She was much weaker. She was older this time. More and more, it was unfortunately something I beat myself up for a lot is I was always on Charlotte's paperwork in schools, and I was getting phone calls about her missing more school than she needed to. Trying to talk to my mom about that and have her go like, I'm doing my best. I'm really trying, but like I can't get up some days. This is really hard for me. So she started definitely becoming more of a responsibility on our end. I moved her out of the school she was in into the same school as Mason. I ended up doing all the pickups and drop-offs, and it was somewhat gradual, but she was still totally in my mom's care. And then there was Thanksgiving of 2021. So Theo was still very little. And my mom used to always drive from Memphis to Virginia to see her parents for holidays. And she was in a car wreck with Charlotte. And they were in the middle of nowhere. I could barely access, what was going on. I was talking to people, EMS and police officers, trying to figure out how to get her back home. And when I got her back home, I realized something was wrong. Something was off. And her story about the crash wasn't making sense to her, and it wasn't making sense to me. So I took her to the hospital, and I went to my mom's apartment, and I got all of Charlotte's things, and I brought them over to my home with my husband and a friend. And I just kind of waited for news from the hospital because I felt like something was wrong. And that's where the trajectory of her last time with brain cancer really began. Basically, at the end of the day, brain cancer did not kill my mom. It was fighting brain cancer. So the edema that takes over your brain, the scar tissue that keeps filling that hole when they're removing brain cancer was crushing her. It was creating so much pressure in a way that like a conversation had to be had. I took my sister out of school one day and I let her have time with my mom. They watched Mary Poppins on repeat. Yes, in a sweet way because they both loved it, but also because my mom kept forgetting that they'd already watched it, which is really hard. And this doctor pulls me out into the hallway and she asks me, do you want your daughter to come with you? And I said, it's not my daughter, that's my little sister. And I just watched her face like fall. She was so heartbroken. And she was like, okay, it's best if she stays in there. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I really don't want to be having this conversation. I would not put your mom through another. I wouldn't put her through more. I think this is it. I'm so sorry. We're just going to create more pressure and more pain. And we can make her comfortable and we can make plans. But I think you know that she's in pain and she has fought so hard.
Yeah.
And it's okay to let go. And, I didn't cry. I was just like, it's fine. No, I get it. It's fine. I know. I was ready for this. I just remember going back into that room and looking at her face. And, mommy's just forgetful. We're watching Mary Poppins for the 4th time.
Mm-hmm.
She's coloring. She's just in her whole little bubble where this is the only normal she's ever known.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how to have that conversation with her. I have no idea. And it was so difficult. I was really lucky that the hospice team that my mom ended up with, because of the Methodist branch of hospitals here in Memphis, that there's like free bereavement therapy. And when you are actively watching somebody, it was probably another month before my mom passed.
Mm.
That's anticipatory grief.
Yeah.
So it's still active grief. You're grieving somebody who's still there, but we were able to begin that. So Charlotte was with a specialist that's just for children, and I was with a specialist for adults. So it was able to begin before mom was actually gone. But throughout that time on social media was the first time I really ever faced hate. I never experienced the level of negative attention ever at like the worst possible time in my life.
For
Yeah.
what? For what, though?
I shared so much about my own pain, what was going on with my mom. People, I think, are so mistrusting of people who have large audiences online. They're so
Yeah.
immediately
Yeah.
mistrusting. And that does come at the fault of some people who have broken their trust. I
Sure, yeah.
completely understand that. But at the time, it was really abundantly clear, like there was no room for me to just be a person who was telling my story. There was no room for that. I was just evil and exploitative and, looking for attention. In reality, despite all the horrible things people were ready to say about me, like, why don't you just shut up and grieve in private? Like, why are you being a weirdo sharing all of this online? Why are you? In reality, like, I would sit up at night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, reading the comments of people telling me, like, I'm so sorry. You
Right.
can't do this. You don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Mom's a beautiful person. Your little sister needs you. And I needed that.
Yeah.
Call it a crave for validation. Call it like you needed attention. It helped me so much.
Yeah, it helped you
It was
process.
the only reason I found out we were going to get free bereavement therapy is because somebody had reached out and told me, like, you need
That's
to ask
amazing.
what they can do for you.
Wow.
I didn't know how to advocate for my mom and be like, the first hospital she ended up at was horrible care. And somebody said, like, you can change that. Let me tell you
Wow.
now. It's just me and Charlotte. I don't have a dad. I don't have a support system. I've got my husband who worked, 60 to 80-hour weeks. I had a brand new baby. I did not have anybody. And whether it was smart or not, the internet became a support system for me.
Yeah.
And I will never regret that. And you can
Yeah.
judge me as much as you want. The most horrible things have been said about me on the internet, but
Yeah, us too.
genuinely do not. Because if you're
Yeah.
willing to watch somebody be in as much pain as I was in, doing their very fucking best, and
Yep.
the best that you have to give me is hate, couldn't be me.
Yeah.
That
Wouldn't
shit
wanna
was
know ya.
shameful.
And
Yeah.
I want and like think of all because we've been in similar situations for sure. And people we've had articles, horrible things said about us too because of divorce, and the way we celebrate and honor divorce. Think of all the women and men who are looking at you saying, oh, my mom's sick or my sister or my child. And like your grieving out loud is paving the way for other
Yeah.
people to be able to grieve. And that's why you're here, right? Like, because, grief and cooking and baking, like that's the magical part about baking and cooking, right? Is you can like transport yourself back to any memory and any time. And, I always think like, Rachel Ray talks about this a lot with like cooking. Like she does, and it makes me every time she
loves
says it.
Rachel Ray.
I do love Rachel Ray, but she says this every time because she constantly is like, you only need a few dollars and you can basically transport yourself to anywhere you want to go
Mhm.
via food, right? And so you're sharing your grief story, which we still don't talk about grief, right, culturally, and then weaving that into your building a business and your mom and a wife and the cooking and baking and stuff that it makes people feel so seen and so like just
Yeah.
appreciated. So how did that all kind of end up? She was very sick for a month and then Do you have a question, Judy?
No, if you would be comfortable, would you tell us your mom's name? Because I always think like it's important to like say people's names out loud.
Yeah, no, my mother's name was Jennifer Joy. My maiden name was Joy, and I gave that up.
Oh, wow. You must love that man.
No, her name was Jennifer Joy, and she always went. It was like a family nickname for her that her grandmother called her Jenny Wren.
That was one of
there was
your
a song.
nicknames.
Yeah, that's one of my nicknames, Jenny Wren.
So I've worn down the same bracelet. Somebody, I don't even know who sent it to me. If it ever broke, I think I'd lose my mind because I've been wearing it since before she died. But no, there's so much that I talk about with my mom. You know, she was in hospice, and I remember feeling like her being in hospice was like so depressing, but I've arrived at a place where, like, when I look back at the photos of what we did to her room and what the friends she collected along her life, who traveled from really far away to come and see her, did to her room, it's so beautiful. I mean, there was art that people made for her. There was stuff that people sent me because of TikTok that was just like, I spoke so much about her love for birds. My mom had like nursed a cardinal with this crooked ass beak when I was a kid that she loved and she had for years. She was always collecting and feeding birds. Then we had a hurricane one year when I was a kid, and there were baby starlings like everywhere in our yard the next day. Their parents were not going to come back to them. There were 12 baby starlings, and she outfitted the shed in our backyard with like crate into like feeding them until they literally were all well, all lived, and were able to live on their own. She was incredibly gifted and empathetic, an artist, you know, a hippie, a very much, you know, free minded. I found so annoying as a kid way. Normal. No, but and I feel like her room really reflected that. Looking back on those pictures, it wasn't depressing. She was surrounded by so much love and art, and so many things that represented who she was her whole life. It's funny. I made a video the night before. It took me days. There were like 3-4 day stretches I could not go and see her in hospice because I was running this cookie business. I had like one employee and my husband who was still working, you know, 60, 80-hour weeks. And I was juggling 3 kids and a baby who wasn't fully sleep trained. I was beating myself up so bad for that. And I went to see my mom, and I made a video sitting in my car before I went to see her. And there was just something about going to see her that I just was just like, I don't know if this is going to happen again. And it didn't. She died the next day. My mom donated her body to science, which was a whole nother journey for me, but is what she always wanted. So months later, I received her ashes. And here's the thing. I've also shared a lot about grief that is, I have very dark humor, and I don't do a lot of things traditionally in a way that has also caught some bad attention because people think it's disrespectful. It's not. My mom's on my kitchen counter. I'm sorry. She is.
I love that. That's great.
Counter.
Why not?
My sister makes these little costumes for I never bought an urn. It's a black plastic box that says, you know, Genesis Life Donation, Jennifer Joy on the front. Because like, I don't want to put her in a vase. It's a nice little thing.
It's working.
And Charlotte makes these little costumes for her. She's got a little costume on her box right now that's like a cardinal. And she used like a brass tack to give it a moving wing.
That's brilliant.
And it just feels like, you know, she sits there and she watches our whole life go down. I feel like everybody knows throughout their childhood, their life goes down like at the dining room, in the kitchen, and the living room. That's where your whole life, all your memories are.
Yeah.
And she's right there for it all.
Yeah. The idea of anybody judging the way that you two process your grief, of having gone through such a fairly unusual thing, you know, nobody knows what inside of your home was like and your relationship with your mother was like, and you know how to honor it, you know?
Yeah. I think also socially, people have had this idea for a very long time that the most respectful way you can remember somebody and show that you love them is to grieve quietly and privately.
Yeah.
And I grieve very much out loud. I have done it 100% of the time. And that isn't shameful and that isn't wrong. I became a healthier, better person, a healthier, better guardian. I took care of Charlotte in a way that she is able to wrap for grief and growth and happiness and not feel shame in being happy.
Yeah.
And not feel embarrassed, almost to a dangerous level. Not being embarrassed to bring up our mom. When people go like, oh, is this your mom? And she'll go, no, that's my sister. My mom's dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's okay to say. And I'm not going to tell her that's wrong to say. The adult she's talking to better not make her feel
Right.
that.
Yeah, that's
And
their
that's
issue.
that's
not
the
yours.
truth. Right. That's the truth. Yeah. How is Charlotte doing these days?
She's so annoying.
Well, how old
No,
is
I
she
think
now?
that's
She's
11? 10, yeah.
She'll
Okay.
be 11 this July.
Yeah.
She's very much, I hate to say, well adjusted.
Yeah.
It's so clinical. She's very much a normal 10-year-old.
Yeah.
In the sense that like she never had to leave that portion behind her. That's not something she went through and it's done and it's over and it's whenever. That's
Yeah.
always going to be a part of what she's going through right now because she grieved as a kid. But the thing about grieving with kids is you have to meet them where they are. And something that's like really healthy to explore in bereavement therapy is that, you may feel like to grieve properly, you need to lay down, miss a week of work, not talk to anybody, drink yourself into a hole, all this stuff. A kid will likely face an extremely traumatic event and want to go to school the next day. And you should not bring them down to your level. You have to meet them where they are. If her energy is, my mom died yesterday and I want to go to school today, she goes to school.
Right.
You back to dad lunch.
But that takes trusting. That takes an intuition about the person that you're with. And you raised her, right? Really, like alongside you were the co-parent, right? So she trusts you, right? She feels safe with you. And so you also know her better than anybody else. So if she says, I want to go to school, that you're like, okay, I believe you. But also it sounds like your family is probably pretty intuitive, just generally, a little witchy, I would assume. Okay, and so in between all of this, you have I know we only have a few minutes left, but you have a company that starts to take off like wildfire.
Yeah.
Could you tell us for 1 minute how the company is doing, where you are, where you're going, all the good stuff?
It completely consumed my life. It blew up in a way I was never anticipating. I thought maybe I could support my family for a while or something like that. No, it's my full-time job. It's my husband's full-time job. We have 10 employees. We've got a shipping facility and we got commercial kitchen, and it's pretty much everything I ever wanted, but didn't know I was ever going to be able to achieve just by speaking up for myself, talking about all aspects of my life and not being embarrassed about them, and mixing my creativity and what makes me happy into all of that. It changed my world, and I love TikTok for that.
Yeah. I love that so much. Well, how can people buy the cookies? How can they get in touch with you? I feel like I still have a million questions, so you're gonna have to come back on.
I know. I want to have you come back on and talk about when you guys went down the road of investment and that got a little squiggy, right? That was a bit weird. So I would love to, maybe recorded, maybe not recorded. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
So we rebranded about a year ago to Chloe's Giant Cookies.
Okay.
People were so confused by the name Bluff Cakes because it's tied to Memphis, Bluff City, and it was a name from just for an Instagram forever ago. It wasn't me anymore. So everything, all social media, website is all just tied to Chloe's Giant Cookies. And we're still only tied to all 50 states. I want to be international this year, but
send them to Scotland.
She's in Scotland. I love that so much. You just have you are so authentic and so honest. And, it's true. When we can be authentic people and share our journey, that is when the magic happens. Right. And, we talk so much about fresh starts, and people often say to us, well, my fresh start wasn't positive, right? Or it wasn't, it was
I didn't
something
pick
that was
it. Yeah.
forced upon me. And it's like, sometimes fresh starts are death, right? Or the death of a loved one, or having to take your sister in. Now, did you officially adopt her, or how did that work before you go? Because I know people are going to ask
So
us.
my husband and I are her full-time legal guardians. Now, untouched by this is Charlotte does have a father, but he lives states away. She sees him as often as she can, and he's wonderful. He just wasn't an active part of her life throughout this whole journey and my mom's journey of brain cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Love it. Well, amazing. I appreciate you sharing. Modern family. And you know what? I know just from talking to you for the last hour that your house is full of a lot of love and music. And I was going to ask, I don't know why I'm asking this, but I'm going to ask, maybe your mom is telling me to. What was your mom's favorite song?
Oh, mom's favorite song was this Johnny Cash version of You Are My Sunshine. She would put it on repeat for my little sister. And it's just the song that I have a recording actually that I've never shared of my mom and my little sister singing it together. And it's just her like 2-year-old little voice and my mom's. It's beautiful.
It's one of our favorite songs. That was one of our songs with our grandmother too. It's a very special song.
Yeah.
Chloe, you are an amazing person, and we're so grateful that we connected. And please go buy Chloe's cookies and stay tuned for the Hallmark movie that we're going to produce and have a meeting about in about 3 seconds. Chloe, thank you for being so you, and just keep being big like your cookies, because you're just getting started.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys are great.
It's a fresh story, come and see. With Olivia and Jenny, be who you need to be. Honest voices, safe and strong. Come as you are, you belong. So take a breath, let's begin. You're not alone.